Lead in to what I want to talk to you about now, and it's standing up to fear. Is anybody afraid of anything? Anythings? Right? We all have fears, right? There's things that you're just kind of a little apprehensive about, and there are things that scare the hell out of you. But seriously, right? There are things that scare the heck out of us. So the only way to counteract fear is with what? Courage. So I started thinking to myself, there's so little that you can control in life, right? We talked about that earlier this morning. There's so few things that you have control over. I mean, stuff is just going to happen in your life that you have zero control over. So what happens if something like what happened with Gigi happens? I mean, God forbid, but stuff is going to happen the older we get. When things happen to us, what are we going to do about it? I figured, okay, if I don't have any control over any of this stuff in my life that could happen to me, the only thing I could do is build courage. I don't understand why all this stuff happens. I have no idea. I feel like when I get to heaven, I've got a list. I'm not going to list starting with, why would you make me so pasty white and put a sun in the sky? I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, I got a whole list of stuff I want to ask God about, but I feel like when I get there, I won't care. But I don't understand a lot of this stuff that happens. I don't really get it. But I do know that God never wastes anything. So I don't feel like, I really don't believe that he went, okay, so here's the deal. Valerie's going to have an addicted child, and then she's going to get murdered, and then it's going to go unsolved, and there's going to be all this stuff, and sorry, you drew the short straw. I don't know. The one thing he could have done is he could have stopped it. But I don't know why he didn't. But what good does it do for us to sit around wondering why these things happened or didn't happen? So we have these terrible, awful things happen to us. Why don't we just turn it around and be a beacon of hope and prove to people? Have you noticed today that it's possible to get up off the mat? Right? Because you heard from Sarah, and you heard from Donna, and you heard from Diane, and you heard from Dawn, and you heard from Gigi, and Sean, and Rich, and who am I missing? Anyone yet? Pamela. Oh, yes. Pamela, and Adrian, and Shauna. Every single one of them were down on the mat. And it took courage for every one of you to stand up during all, for all these different situations. So fear. I mean, we're so driven by fear, aren't we? We do not like to be afraid. Does anybody like scary movies? I hate scary movies. Why do you like to be afraid? I don't get it. Your adrenaline. Okay, I think when I was a kid, we had Nightmare Theater up in Seattle. Anybody from up in the Northwest? We had Nightmare Theater. Remember the guy in the coffin, and he'd come up, and it was really scary? So I guess when I was your age, I probably did like that, but I don't like to be scared. And because here's the thing, this is the kind of stuff that happens when you have fear in your life. It kills your confidence. Anybody relate to that? I was a very confident person until all hell broke loose in my life, and I started riding that roller coaster from hell. I lost my confidence. Because I couldn't make that thing better. I couldn't fix that big thing in my life. The thing I cared more about than anything else was fixing Jamie. I cared more about that than anybody else and anything else. I did. Because if she would just get better, then everything could be great, and we could just all go back and everything would be fine. The problem is that after so many years of living in fear and all of that, I would have still been kind of messed up, right? So it kills your confidence. It keeps you stuck. Hopeless, helpless. I mean, I call it paralyzing fear. I was so scared to make any decisions about anything. I became like a non-decision making person. So, how do we counteract fear with courage? And here's the big secret. It is a choice. Because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. Well, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a courageous person. I'm kind of a chicken. Anyone think they're not courageous? Be honest, be honest. Nobody. Okay, well, turn this off, Aaron. Here are the myths about courageous people, because this is what people think about people like me, people like Gigi, people that have stood up, people that are strong, that we never get scared. Do you ever get scared, Gigi, still? I get scared too. There's no possible way. I don't care what it looks like in the outside. There's nobody that does not get scared. I get scared all the time. The difference is that people who are living a courageous life, we do it anyway. We just stand up anyway. We face our fears because facing your fears is the way to build courage, that we're always confident. Do you look at me and think I'm always confident? I have self-doubt too. I have self-doubt. I do. I wonder, is this event going to be good enough? Will people feel like they got some benefit out of it? Uh-oh, what if it's not good? I mean, those things happen to me. Right, Rich? They do. What did he say? I don't even want to know. Don't even tell me. Don't even tell me. That we're always decisive, right? We're just all on top of things. That's why I was awake at 3:45 this morning, because I'm so decisive. The truths. Now here's the truth about courage. Every single person has the ability to live a courageous life, to be courageous. Every single person. People say to me all the time, oh, I wish I could be as courageous as you are, Valerie. Well, guess what? I used to wish I could be as courageous as me too. Right? I mean, it took work. I had to work at it. It's never too late. I don't care how old you are, what you've been through, what people think of you. None of that matters because it's a choice. Remember? Okay, so I was thinking about with my new book. Well, y'all helped me this morning, which was great. But I was thinking to myself, maybe I should call it Courage Matters More Than Anything Else. And then I thought, no, because then people are going to start going, well, what about God and oxygen and, stuff like that, Those things matter a little bit more. That'll be too controversial. So I had to put a caveat in here. I won't call it that. But courage matters more than almost anything else. And I say that without reservation because anything in life worth having will take courage. Has anybody ever started anything new? Were you scared? You have, Rich. Okay. When you try things at first, they're difficult and you're scared, aren't you? You're very, very scared. But you do it anyway. So it's going to take courage. It took courage for these 3 beautiful ladies who are not professional speakers to pour out their souls. It took courage for Pamela and Adrian and Shauna. Well, Pamela's been, in front of, behind the microphone a lot, but I mean, for Shauna and Adrian to sit up here and have that took courage. It takes courage sometimes to end a relationship, right? I mean, it takes courage to stand up for yourself. It takes courage to tell your story. It takes courage, like Gigi was saying about mental health. It takes courage to just say what it is, to stand on your story. And the list goes on. It's all about having courage. Did anybody else okay, these girls are going, what's the Wizard of Oz? Right? All the young people are like, do you know the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, they know.
Do you watch the Wizard of Oz too? Right on. Okay, when we were kids, back when we had to walk uphill in the snow both ways to school, back when we were kids, it came on once a year. Remember that? Was it like 2 days or something? Because it was a long movie. And you got to stay up late. Everyone got to stay up late and watch The Wizard of Oz. Well, even as a kid, I've got the meaning. I love the meaning behind The Wizard of Oz. So do you remember when they got to Oz finally? And it was pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, and it turned out he wasn't a wizard at all. But remember that non-wizard, the lessons that he taught them? Basically, what he taught them was it was always inside of you. You always had it. And so the cowardly lion, he got permission to have courage, right? That you were already always courageous. Well, then I'm courageous. And that's really what you have to do, is give yourself permission to just stand up and be courageous and stand up to fear. The only way to overcome fear is to face it. Okay, so now I've got to pick on my mother again. I'm not picking on her. I'm just telling you a story. My mother is terrified of flying. Was terrified of flying. Lynn feels the same way about flying. They don't like to fly. Let me tell you something. A lot of our fears have to do with control. You don't like it because you have no control. Now, when you're out on the road, which, by the way, flying we all know is the safest form of transportation, but fears aren't really rational. So I'm always saying, okay, you know what you should do? Before you leave for the airport, get down on your knees and ask God to get you to the airport safely. Because it's way scarier and way more dangerous to drive in a car. But that's not rational, right? People are afraid to fly. And it's because you don't have control. So my mother was a real interesting person to fly with. So I'm not sure if this was good or bad. She had a friend that worked at Boeing who told her that an airplane is under the most stress during takeoff and landing. And so it's takeoff and landing where so I don't know if that's good or bad, because the first couple minutes and the last couple minutes are pretty much awful with my mother. She's grabbing onto stuff and freaking out, and she hears this bang, and she's, oh my God, what is that? And I'm like, Mom, it's landing gear. We need landing gear. This is a good thing. Very scared. So I used to tell my mom all the time, you need to fly more. Okay, she'd go, let's start again. I'm scared to fly. I would say, then fly more. Now she gets on airplanes all by herself. Now, I don't think it's your favorite thing to do, but you're okay to fly, right? Because she started flying more. She faced that fear. Because time after time, she goes to the airport and she comes home. It's the darndest thing. Sorry. I told you her favorite word was the S word, so I can't help it. But I don't think we're not really born with that many fears. We get fears from other people. We get fears. Of course, some fears are good. We need to learn that, some things are scary and dangerous. So I wanted to get over my fear of heights because, it was really an unnatural fear to the point where, so we have this mountain, Mount Everest, when I climbed Mount Everest. Who said today I climbed? Thank you, Dawn. Yeah. I thought, let's just go with that. I like that. Yeah. Until my brother looked over and went, wasn't it Mount Pilchuck? But still, it was 5,000 feet or something up, right, isn't it? Someone's going to look that up and go, no, it's 4,600. Okay, so anyway, I went up Mount Pilchuck, and it's really it's in Washington State, and it's really cool. Up there they have this little house, and it used to be a fire lookout. And it's cabled down. They have these big boulders all over the place, and it's kind of cabled down. And you can climb up this little ladder, and it has this little railing. You just walk around, and it's a 360-degree view. The Cascade Mountains are just so beautiful, right? And I wanted to go so bad. So I went hiking with my brother Brad, and I get there, and I go up the little ladder, and I get there, and I go, I'm palpitating, like the thing's gonna fall over or something. It was just, it bummed me out because I had hiked hard to get up there. His legs are like 1.5 times mine, and I had to scurry behind him to try to hike with him. And I couldn't go up there. So I said, that's not acceptable to me. That's ridiculous. I should be able to do this. So I had a friend that wanted to help me on my quest for my fear of heights. So we went to Scottsdale, and we went up in a hot air balloon. And I said, well, you know what? There's no sensation of height up here. There was no sensation of height. It was kind of like being in an airplane for me. No problem. Then I went into another one in Washington. So I went in 2 hot air balloons. He rented a small plane. That's not it because I don't have a picture of it. But he rented a small plane, and we flew from Scottsdale to the Grand Canyon. And the next stop was to be a helicopter into the Grand Canyon. But this picture here, they're kind of grainy, aren't they? But this picture here is on Mount Pilchuck. And it was the next time I went back, I went up that ladder, went all the way around, and sure in the heck, on the other side was a break in the railing. And you could walk out on this kind of plank thing. And that was me standing on the top of Mount Pilchuck. The same girl that was palpitating before. Okay, I'm not going to go bungee jumping, and I'm not jumping out of an airplane, so it's not like I'm some daredevil now. But that's pretty amazing, and it was because I decided that I didn't want to have those kind of fears. Now, this other fear is kind of maybe silly. Anybody have any birds? Okay, I think birds are beautiful. I love them in the air. I like them on TV, but I don't want birds to touch me. Okay? Now, I know you don't know about this. There was a movie called The Birds. You did. You're like a little old soul, aren't you? And so remember that movie, The Birds? Have you watched it? It's hokey as heck. It's so hokey, though, when you look at it now. But, there were birds everywhere, and remember she was stuck in the phone booth? You know about phone booths, too, right? We already talked about that. Okay, so, there was birds. I don't know. I think that movie freaked me out, really. I don't want birds to touch me at all. So Rich and I were in Mexico, and this gal staying at the resort had found this, what kind of bird is that? A parrot? Little green thing? And, could talk and all that. So she finds this, it was domesticated, they could tell, because it clipped wings and all that. And they didn't know whose it was, so she's babysitting it the whole time we're in Zihuatanejo. And I'm looking at, because I'm fascinated, but I don't want it to touch me. So one day, she comes over and goes, okay, we need to go somewhere. I don't know where the heck they are. We're going to go to lunch or whatever. And she plops the freaking bird on me and leaves. I'll be back. And she came back like 2 hours later, and I had to babysit this bird. So this is my picture of like, oh, isn't it cute? Oh God, it's gonna peck my eyes out. But I babysat the bird. So I have this lady in my neighborhood who has a cockatoo. You know those big, tall, beautiful, cream colored with orange? She walks the cockatoo. The husband walks the dog, she walks the cockatoo, right? They walk around. And we live, in a golf course community, so there's, golf carts and mowers and all this stuff. And this bird just, nothing phases it. So again, I'm fascinated by it. It's beautiful. So I'm talking to her about it, and the bird goes like this with its claw. These claws are like this big, right? And it goes, whoa, what's going on? It wants to go on you. It was doing that. So she put it on me, and I held it. I held the bird like this, and then it started doing this for the shoulder. I was like, I'm out. That's enough of that bird. Okay, maybe that's not a big, huge thing, but I touched birds. Now, this one here is my brother, my sister-in-law, Rich, and I were down in Key West. And birds I dislike. I hate reptiles and rodents. I mean, with a passion. So there's this this guy with this boa constrictor. And you can pay, idiots can pay money to have your picture taken with the boa constrictor around your neck. Now, it could squeeze me to death in 42 seconds, or no, 4.2 seconds, right? It could kill me. But I just thought, I'm so afraid that I want to do it, okay? And, there were some adults in the crowd, meaning my husband, my sister-in-law, and my brother, and they were going, hell no, I'm not going to do that. I was going, I'm doing it. Come on, you guys. Nope, they wouldn't do it. So the guy did it with me because I thought, well, at least there's a 50% chance I'll get the life choked out of me. And so we put the boa constrictor, and if you could really see the clear picture, it's a great picture, isn't it, Lynn? And I'm just smiling like this, and what you can't see because it's not video is like, hurry up, take the picture, hurry up. But I did it. See, these are kind of like little things, but that's what we have to do in life. We got to face some of our fears. This picture of me down here is just outside of Jamie's. This is where my daughter is. That's her palm tree. It's just facing the fear of living without my daughter. You might be shocked to know that I was terrified of public speaking. Now, isn't public speaking above death or something like that on lists of fears? Isn't it true? Yeah. It is. She's a psychologist, so I can ask her questions like this. She's a doctor, she knows. But isn't it, on all these lists, fear of public speaking. Did you all have to do that in high school? Remember that? So in high school, I did my speech because I was in child psychology. I wanted to be a child psychologist, actually. Instead, I became a parent, and then I became a child psychologist. But, so, it's true. So, I can't remember why I was. See, does this happen to anyone else who's in there sliding down the backside of 50? Thank you.
You were going to speech in high school.
So it was called oral communications in high school, and we all did. And you knew all the people in the room; they weren't even strangers, right? So I decided to do my speech on spina bifida. Well, I was in child psychology, and I thought it was really sad, and it was a really interesting talk. Okay, nobody in 9th grade wants to hear about spina bifida. Nobody. I thought I was going to puke. It was the most horrifying experience. Didn't everybody feel like that? So the first time somebody asked me, we had this business convention, there was hundreds of people there, and they asked me if I would co-MC. So co-MC, she was an MC. MCing, by the way, everyone should bow down to Kelly, because being an MC is absolutely one of the most challenging things to do at an event. Everybody else has their thing. The MC has to play off of people, and MCing, it's not an easy thing. And I thought, but I'm going to be a co-MC. I can do this. That morning, she got laryngitis. So I get up there, and it's this big, tall stage. It seemed like it was about 16 feet high, the stage. And I get up there, and I make this funny, about cell phones. I don't remember. And it was I'm thinking, I'm 30 seconds in, and this is going well. And then I look down and there's this gal down below the stage and she goes, the national anthem, the national anthem. They always started their meetings with the national anthem. And there I was up doing my thing, right? So somehow I have to get down off the stage and, and then I got back up and, whatever. And at lunch, one of the speakers, who was a very, very seasoned speaker, he said, tapped me on the shoulder. He said, how long have you been public speaking? And I said, since 9 o'clock this morning. But the point is that it turns out I can do it okay. But I would never, ever have known if I wouldn't have tried. Sometimes we have to stand up to really big fears. So I think Kelly actually mentioned that. So my daughter's murderer was arrested in March of this year. And so we had gone 2.5 years. It was becoming cold. We really didn't think anything was going to come of this. We had accepted it. We wanted justice. We prayed for justice. We hoped for it. But we didn't think it was going to happen. And our biggest fear, actually, is that he would kill somebody else. So it's really a good thing to get these people off the streets. Well, unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. He was wanted for murder in Arizona. And so the Indio Police Department got a message saying, we believe the intel is he's back in the valley. And they put together this task force. And they called us on Sean's birthday, this March, and said, they're out looking for him right now. And it took them 2 days. And we thought, this valley's small. We thought, oh, he's a goner, right? He's going to be across the border, And anyway, the long and short of it is they arrested him. And they did wind up charging him with 5 felonies. And he's on a $2 million bail. So an arraignment, when someone's arrested, he was arrested on a Friday. By Tuesday, he has to get before a judge. They got to figure out, what are they going to do with this guy? And so you're given a victim's advocate. So she tells us, you don't have to ever go to court. I'll go for you. I said, no, I'm going to his arraignment. And she kind of tried to talk us out of it, didn't she, Rich? Because she knows how difficult it is on families. But I thought, I need to do this. I need to face the guy who took my daughter's life. And so Rich and I raced down to the courthouse. I'm all ready. Well, now I'm starting to get a little nervous. I didn't think I was facing a fear. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go, but then it started coming, that fear. And she said, there's nobody in the courtroom, really. It's just a defense attorney, 2 prosecuting attorneys, a couple bailiffs, and, the judge sitting there. People from here know that the courtrooms here are small, right? They're really small. I would say it's like from here to that back wall. Some of these courtrooms, they're pretty small. The judge is back here. The defendant was sitting facing this way in the jury box. And, she basically said, you can't miss him. He's the guy in orange. So, she goes, are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. I'll be fine. She opens up the door like that, and I immediately burst into tears. But now I'm walking in, and I'm walking toward him, and he looked at me because I burst into tears. And as I'm walking toward him, I said, how could you? Well, then the bailiff came over, and apparently you're not supposed to talk to the people. You're not supposed to talk to people in the courtroom. They wanted to see if I had to be removed and all that, but I promised to be a good girl. But the whole time I was in that courtroom, unless he was being addressed, and an arraignment's fairly short, unless he was being addressed by the court, he could not keep his eyes off me. And I felt pretty empowered. Because the first time Jamie was shot, I know this sounds so weird. It's so weird to me today still to say the first time she was shot. I can't even believe I have to say the one time. He turned out to be in a gang, and they told me he ended up pleading guilty, and he spent 10 years in prison. And they told me, I said, I want to go to his sentencing, because he could get 10 to 14 years. They said, if you go, he'll get 14. If you go and tell what happened to your family, I'm pretty sure he'll get 14, but don't do it. Courtrooms are open to the public, unfortunately for victims, and there could be some of his buddies, blah, blah, blah. Don't do it. Well, I told the detectives when they came to my house after Jamie was killed, I said, I'm not afraid. I am not afraid. What can they do to me? I'm just not afraid. So I will go, and I will speak at sentencing, and I will go to this arraignment. And I was not afraid. And what's interesting is if I had a plan to say something, I'd have been like, all the stuff. But what came out of my soul was a question. How could you? So he can think about that. He can sit there and think about that behind bars. How could you? So that was a huge, huge fear to face, and I'm so glad I did. So face the little fears, the daily stuff, the flying, the birds and all that. But also we got to face the big stuff too. Because guess what? Nothing bad happened. In fact, something good happened. I felt really empowered because I wasn't wearing orange. Someone told me that the other day too. A redhead, they're like, you shouldn't wear, orange. Okay. So I'm going to try to stay out of prison then. Unless you go to Arizona because they wear pink, I think. Might just be the guys. So here's the cool thing. Once you cross the courage line, I call it the courage line, there's no going back. I think once you take that step over the courage line and you say, I'm going to live a courageous life, you kind of can't go back. It just doesn't work anymore. And I'm watching what people are doing. So get around people who believe in you and start living a courageous life, because it's like I said before, like everything else, it's a choice. You don't have to. You can live in fear if you want. It's up to you, and you have to be the one to stand up and fight. Fight as if your life depends on it, because it does.